soldiering on with the headache. I do apologise my show is somehow subpar today. I could barely think straight. A smashing headache. I just got an entire pack of Wrigley's Airwaves. Now, those of you who don't know what they are, they're really, really strong menthol chewing gums, and just stuffed them in my mouth. And now I can't taste anything. Or see. But it pseudo-helped, just a little bit, kinda helped my headache. It only feels like my brain's about to explode out my eyes. Ah, well. I'll deal with it. It's obviously the rage built up there over the course of the week. Also, I would like to give a congratulations to a guild by the name of Paragon, who has just snagged the world second, or the EU first, Heroic Alone in the Darkness, i.e. Yoxamon with 0 watches. So well done to them. Well done. Yes, they did it before Insidia. How did they do that? Well, probably because Insidia had already beaten it for the week. Oh well, nicely done, guys. Good things come to those who wait. So yes, well done to Paragon. Obviously, China showing us the way. It is clearly not impossible. China just figured it out better than we did. Right. Okay, let's wind down a little bit and talk about something that is not really, really raid-related. I just want to talk about WoW in general as a game. And there has been numerous criticisms pointed at this and indeed any other MMO. Primarily on the Something Awful forums, because this is what you got to bear in mind. SA forums. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and neckbeards. Yep, you've got 100,000 or so? Yeah, I guess it is. 100,000 goons. You know, nerds, geeks, and freaks of all manner of different shape and size, although mostly sizing and towards the big and huge and 450 pounds and punches wall and all that manner of things. And they have this hatred, well, they have hatred of quite a lot of things, but one of them is MMOs. And there was a discussion in the games forum about MMOs in general, and the question came as to whether or not MMOs could actually genuinely be considered fun if you had to play them with other people in order for them to work. Now, there are other games that you have to play with other people in order for them to work well, and we've actually started playing one of those again by the name of Titan Quest. Titan Quest is really dull unless you're playing it with a bunch of friends. And yes, I do believe that adding a lot of other people into a game can make it more fun than it would be on your own. But what about if the game depends on that? It can be said that WoW does depend to some degree on having other people around to chat with and level with and do all this kind of stuff. So can it be considered a game or can it be considered work? Now, for me, from a personal perspective, leveling up another character with the current system would be considered work. Leveling up another character, say in PvP, well, not so much. There are a lot of games with levels in them where leveling just seems to happen while you're having fun. As opposed to another design of game whereby the fun comes from leveling. Now, anything that has fun, the fun derived directly from leveling, as opposed to the stuff that you're doing while you're leveling, is running a little bit of a risk there. A lot of the problems that I had with hack-and-slash games, for instance, like Diablo, is that a lot of the fun came from getting loot. And the game itself and the combat was really not all that enjoyable. Titan Quest suffers from a similar problem, but thankfully if you combine the fact that it's got a really great setting with the fact that you're playing with other people and the combat's a bit more advanced than Diablo, it can become pretty enjoyable. But on its own, it was really boring. Now, the same, I suppose, could be applied to raiding and indeed a lot of other things in WoW. Perhaps almost everything other than maybe PvP, which does change. Now, the art of leveling up, the art of questing and all that kind of stuff, to me that is not all that much fun at all. And it does seem like a job. And to me also raiding turned into a job. And when it turned into a job, as in I was attending because I was required to. I was attending because if I didn't, I would let the team down. And I was attending to do all of this boring stuff, and they were going to pay me my salary in epics, as opposed to I actually wanted to be there. And there's a problem. You know, I want to be here right now doing this show. Doing radio can be a job, but I would always hope that when I ever did radio, that I would want to be there. And the fact that I was getting paid would just be a nice bonus, a nice encouragement. Same applies to raiding and indeed playing WoW. I want to be there. And the fact that I'm leveling up and making progress, well, that's just a bonus. It should never become a part of, a kind of setup where you're going into the game and you think, I have to get these levels. And it'll all be alright at the end. It'll be more fun at the end. Or, oh god, I must find someone to level with because I'm so bored. I need somebody to talk to. That's not a mark of good game design. Not at all. That's not a good situation to be in. Who wants to be in that situation? I certainly wouldn't. Hell no. I would never want to be in a situation like that. And it's happened. It has happened a couple of times. Same deal with Eve. Yep. People invited me to go on some mining ops with them, and my unequivocal answer to that was hell no. Sitting around for 4 hours, even if I'm just shooting the breeze with the guys on vent, while mining is boring. Yeah? Here's the difference. I could pick a good game whereby I do good fun things, like say Team Fortress 2. Yeah? Getting items in Team Fortress 2, there's a good example for you. Getting items in Team Fortress 2 is not the primary purpose of Team Fortress 2. The primary purpose is to win the map. If you get items while you're doing it, then that's great too. If you get achievements while you're doing it, well, hey, that's great too. But I'm having fun while I'm not getting either of those things. That's the thing. Same with raiding. If you take away the epics from the raiding, is raiding still fun? And the answer, in many cases, is actually no, it isn't. Getting the items is the big payoff, as opposed to the journey of getting there. Yes, back in the day, raiding, and indeed to some degree in Old WoW as well, raiding was fun, and getting the epics was just a nice bonus. Now, not so much. Not for me. I just can't do it. And I think there's a lot of people like that. And this applies to almost everything in WoW at the moment. Everything seems like a chore. Daily quests, for instance. Could you ever really make daily quests seem anything other than a job? At all? Could you? I don't know. Bombing runs were maybe fun the first few times, but the problem with daily quests, and indeed the problem with WoW in general, is the entire game is based on repetition. Now, unless you are doing something which is incredibly fun to begin with, that repetition gets stale very fast, and it turns into a job, as opposed to something fun. Now, there are games coming out that are looking to remedy that. An example would be Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic MMO. I was reading an exclusive preview of it in the PC Game, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm going to cover this on Tuesday's Gaming the System. That's going to be our MMO-ery for that week. The thing that they're looking at is the idea that you make permanent choices, and that is that. You don't repeatedly go and do the same stuff over and over and over again, so it's not a job. Now, the problem with that is you've got to make a bunch of content that is fun, and that you go through and you never really have to repeat it. WoW never managed that. Because even though you move from area to area, you still did the same quests over and over again. Get me 10 bear asses. In 100 or 1,000 different variants. Now, the problem you also run into is that combat in WoW in general is not all that fun. Combat in an organised raiding environment, now that is fun, but combat solo against PvE mobs is pushing the same button over and over again. Now, PvPers, they've got the right idea, because the combat in PvP involves a larger use of abilities, a larger range of abilities to use, and a lot more different circumstances. You have to be reactive, whereas in a PvE environment, not so much. It's a preset encounter. You have to learn the dance. Yeah? You're great at the foxtrot. You can execute the foxtrot perfectly every time. But what about improv? That's what PvP's about. You may have certain moves that you know will work in particular situations, but in PvP, you're improv. You're a jam band, as it were. You know the chords that work, but you're making it up as you go along, and that's got a lot more longevity to it. PvE can turn into a job. It can turn into a chore. That's a real problem. Now, what about when you're doing it with friends? What about leveling up with friends? Is leveling up with friends really any fun whatsoever? Well, it's more fun than leveling up on your own, that's for sure. I had a reasonable amount of fun doing RAF, but I'll be honest, I could only do it in short bursts, because as a game itself, it wasn't that enjoyable. Here's an example. I was doing my rogue, yeah? I was leveling him up to 60 for Arcanist Belt. And I never really played a rogue before. And I was playing along with Ariana, and I was leveling up very fast, and we were doing dungeons and stuff like that. And yes, learning the new class was pretty fun. But doing the quests wasn't. The quests were dull.
The quests were the same kind of stuff over and over and over again. Collect 10 bear asses, etc., etc. And those quests that don't tie together in any specific respect are like jobs. They are chores. They are errands. For 60, 70, or even 80 levels, they are errands. And they've only just started tying them together in such a way that is actually enjoyable in Wrath. Let's take an example of stuff that's really good, questing-wise, in Wrath. Here's an example. Anything that involves a big chain, which all ties together to a climax whereby you solo fight a boss. Fighting bosses is fun. There's plenty of games where you fight bosses. Bosses are in all sorts of games. Indeed, I just picked up one today on the PSP called Prinny. Can I really be a hero? I am an exploding penguin that says dude all the time. Yes, it's awesome. I fight bosses in that. Fighting bosses in that is fun because it's challenging. Now, the mechanics of that game are really simple. Yeah? You got a couple of attacks, you can jump, and that's about it. And the bosses do different stuff. Same as WoW. These solo boss fights, like the one atop that necropolis, where you're fighting the big troll guy in Zol... whatever the hell it's called. I can't remember. Zol something or other. There's too many Zols these days, I completely forget. So you fight that guy, and he's got these different mechanics. You've got the mind control thing going on. You've got to balance all these different things, and I think that was one of the first times in a long, long, long time, ever since I started playing, that I've actually genuinely had fun with the quest. And I think that what Blizzard's got to do is have a look at that and realise that that's the future of questing. And doing stuff like that is fun. But can they ever come up with enough variety in leveling and questing and indeed anything else that doesn't involve direct human interaction, say in PvP, whereby it doesn't become a chore? Well, that is a challenge. That's a real challenge. Can they pull it off? I have no idea. They're showing some promise. They really are. They're showing some promise in the stuff that came in Wrath. The Wrath questing was the best ever. By far. Can they make it better? Well, in my opinion, the only way they can really make it better is to make it more dynamic. You can come up with as many quests as you want, but until you genuinely feel like you're affecting the world and you're doing something which involves other players, then it's not going to be so great. And in my opinion, that involves integrating PvP, one of the dynamic areas of WoW, into your questing in a way that actually makes sense. It's funny, you hear a lot about the idea of a water expansion. Yeah? A lot of people seem to have the idea, and actually, I'm pretty sure I came up with this as well a long time ago, that the next expansion may be water-based. And if that's the case, then you'd be going around in ships and stuff like that, and there might be naval combat and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, as far as I can tell, if there was going to be naval combat, it would have to be integrated into the game in such a way that it was involved in the leveling. Now, here's the thing. Will Blizzard ever take a risk like that? Because there are a lot of people that kind of cry and whinge and moan and scream that people are interfering with their questing and they're ruining their fun. Well, to me, questing was never fun to begin with, and if someone starts a fight with me in questing, that's kind of a nice bit of enjoyment there, a nice bit of breaking up the monotony. Maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. It would be nice to see Blizzard take a risk on that, make some genuinely dynamic content, and make the game feel less like a job. If you want to keep the job-style stuff like daily quests in the game, because people want to grind and want to do that stuff, and they think that the reward is worth the work, then by all means. But I would ask those guys, take a long, hard look at what you're doing, and are you really having fun? Because if you're not, and you're just doing it for the payoff, then you might want to realise that you're being duped a little bit. It's a scam. It really is. It's a scam to take your time away. A lot of MMOs are like that. That's something that MMOs really have to evolve out of. But I would hope that people are starting to get wise to it. A lot of future MMOs are looking like they won't do that. I would think the future Blizzard MMO is not going to be doing stuff like that. I expect something completely different from them. Because if it's not, and this is an area where I disagree with a lot of my fellow co-hosts, if it's not different to WoW, then it's going to split the player base, and there's no point in developing it. Why spend a load of money developing a game that's not going to bring in additional people? What's the point? There isn't a point. Just keep updating WoW. It's keeping the people there, after all. It's making the money. That's the point of a company. So why make something different? Well, you make something different because you have to advance the genre. Because there is a place in MMOs for a game that is not like WoW. Who better to develop it than the people who made WoW in the first place? Let's see if they can turn MMOs into something that don't resemble jobs that you have to pay for the privilege of playing. I have no idea. We'll see. Hopefully it'll happen. My name's Total Biscuit. I am done with the speculating, folks. The illusion of choice
in the mountains.
Yes, that's where you can find it. Will be coming up right after this break, folks. And I have a surprise for you at the end of the show. Something I cobbled together in like 15 minutes before the pre-show. It's pretty bad, but I'm going to play it for you anyway. But you're going to have to wait till the end of the show for that. Got some music for you, and I'll be right back after this with the illusion of choice. Enjoy.